and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA Insurance, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by Louise, Hickey and Maitiú Monaghan. Before we launch into things this week, there's just a couple of quick reminders for you. The opening periods for spreading slurry, farmyard manure and fertiliser are progressively opening up. Zone C, which includes counties Donegal, Leitrim, Cavan and Monaghan, will be open for slurry and manure spreading from Saturday. That will mean the spreading period is open across the whole country from that point. Meanwhile, for chemical fertilisers, Zone A is already open. Zone B, which includes much of the West, Southwest and North Midlands, is open from today, Thursday, and Zone C will open on February 15th. And in terms of farm schemes, the latest tranche of the Targeted Agricultural Modernisation Scheme, Tranche 6, is now open for applications and will remain open until March 7th. The new Minister for Agriculture, Martin Heydon, who we'll be talking about shortly, has announced the closing dates of all subsequent tranches for the rest of the year, and you can check out those dates on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. But we'll move on to the main topic of the week for not just farming, but the whole country, and that's the clean-up effort after Storm Éowyn. Louise, the storm has impacted the agri-sector in many different ways. What are we hearing on the ground this week?
Well, we're a week down the line from when Storm Éowyn first hit the country on Friday the 24th of January, and its effects are still being seen. Many areas are facing power outages and lost water for extended periods with fallen trees and fallen electricity lines. The government and local county councils have been working on recovery efforts, but it is a slow process and many are still waiting on assistance. One of the key concerns highlighted has been the amount of trees down right across the country. The Irish Forest Owners, or the IFO, has called on the newly appointed Minister of State with responsibility for forestry to prioritise support for private plantations damaged by Storm Éowyn. The IFO said it is aware of entire forests flattened along the western coast and across the northern regions of the country. The group is calling for support to meet planting obligations. IFA Chair Derek McCabe said that for a forest owner, seeing years of investment being wiped out overnight is distressing enough without the added burden of paying a forester to submit a licence application and then waiting months for a decision. Farmers are also facing a difficult time in the aftermath of the storm, with machines down due to electricity outages and a low supply of generators. The Irish Farmers Association, or IFA, has said that farm families are struggling to meet basic needs. IFA President Francie Gorman has called for all infrastructure to be assessed in the aftermath of the storm and to see what can be done to better prepare. One organic horticulture farmer told Agriland about how one of her polytunnels was completely destroyed as a result of the storm. She said the damage would set her back both in the short term and the long term with planned rotations. Owner of Manna Organic Farm on the Dingle Peninsula in County Kerry, Thomas O'Connor, also told Agriland that much of his farm was destroyed by the storm. He said that tunnels were wiped out and that it will impact organic farmers' ability to plan for the future. The farmer is also a member of Talamh Beo, which has set up a petition since urging the government to provide assistance to the horticulture industry. O'Connor said he is unable to get insurance for polytunnels and that trying to repair them will be economically challenging for the entire horticulture community. In other news, Cootehill Marsh in County Cavan was also forced to close due to storm damage, but has since reopened. The winds blew in the whole front of the marsh and lifted the first 25 to 30 feet of the roof over the sheep rings. Cootehill Mart's Stephen Drury said the roof sheeting was all strewn across the whole road and down into the backfield and down into the backyard.
And obviously, Louise, the storm has resulted in an enormous amount of power and water outages. And we've even heard of ESB personnel in some cases that are working very long hours, often far from their own homes, and they're staying in B&Bs and the like because there's not enough hours in the day for them to do the necessary restoration work on a given day and then drive home only to be going again first thing in the morning. But on the issue of power and water outages, what's the latest on that front?
Yes, so just before we began recording, ESB Networks had restored supply to 667,000 homes, farms and businesses. Approximately 101,000 customers remain without supply, down from a peak of 768,000. It's understood that the remaining power outages will be restored over the next week. Support crews have arrived from Austria and Finland. Engineers from England also arrived in Ireland. Crews from the Netherlands and France are also due to arrive soon. And water has been restored to 4,500 homes and businesses since yesterday, so that might have updated since, with approximately 2,800 premises remaining without water. In areas where water has not yet returned, alternative water supplies remain in place to support local communities. Generators have been installed at almost all of the plants, pumping stations and reservoirs where it is feasible to do so. Éowyn is also reminding customers to continue to conserve water where possible as supplies return in order to allow reservoir levels to recover. There are some simple steps people can take to conserve their water, such as avoiding the use of water-intensive appliances during this time. Meanwhile, independent MEP for Ireland South, Michael McNamara, has criticised what he described as a green agenda. The MEP has called for building control regulations in Ireland, which need to allow chimneys again, according to the MEP, following the impact of the storm. The MEP believes that people who want to build one-off homes throughout Ireland need to be allowed to build a house that common sense determines should be able to be heated by solid fuel or oil if necessary, as is their right. ESB Networks has published estimated restoration times on its Power Check website for individuals checking to see when their power may be restored. That is being constantly updated, so people can check in on that whenever they need to, Charles.
And with all this going on, Louise, safety, of course, has to be paramount. What are the key safety messages for people to be mindful of?
Yeah, Charles, so lots of safety warnings out there at the minute. The ESB has warned about downed power lines after being made aware of several incidents in which members of the public unknowingly approached fallen electricity infrastructure. The ESB stressed that following a significant weather event like Storm Éowyn, fallen debris can affect people from seeing hidden risks such as wires entangled into trees and branches. Anyone who comes across fallen wires or damaged electricity network should report such cases to the ESB. The Health and Safety Authority, or the HSA, has also warned of safety first. While chainsaws are essential equipment for removing fallen trees and branches, the HSA has warned that there are serious dangers associated with their use. Only trained and competent operators equipped with the necessary personal protective equipment should handle chainsaws, according to the HSA safety advice. It is also understood that scam text messages purporting to be from ESB networks are currently circulating. Anyone who receives such a text message should not engage directly, should not share any personal information if asked, and should block and report the suspicious numbers if necessary.
Well, with power outages all over the country, generators are in high demand, but not everyone has access to one. One TD believes that that's something that should be rectified. Maitiú, you were speaking to Roscommon Galway TD Michael Fitzmaurice on this. What did he have to say about the issue?
Yeah, Charles, I spoke to Deputy Fitzmaurice on Tuesday and he called for the government to provide a grant for generators to every household in Ireland. The Independent Ireland TD was concerned about the situation in his constituency and throughout the west of the country, where there are still thousands of people without water or power. Throughout the week, I've spoken to many farmers in the west and everyone has said that Fitzmaurice has been out doing his best to support them and to help the community in any way he can. When I spoke to Fitzmaurice, he praised the work the ESB are doing, but highlighted his concern about the state of some of the roads in the west of the country. He then called on the government to put regulation in place that any forestry tree over 2 metres that's 30 metres away from a power line, communication line or a road has to be cut.
We should point out as well that with so many generators running around the country, there are safety risks that come with that, and these have been pointed out by the Health Service Executive of Northern Ireland, the HSENI. What are these concerns about, Maitiú?
Yeah, so the HSENI have warned the public about the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning, which can come from kerosene heaters, charcoal grill barbecues, and from using portable generators inside. They've also warned that only equipment designed to be used indoors should be brought inside the home. In terms of safety, people should also make sure they have good ventilation and a working carbon monoxide alarm at all times. Symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning can feel like every other day illnesses and include headaches, nausea, breathlessness, dizziness, collapsing and a loss of consciousness. As well as the risks of carbon monoxide, using a generator increases the risk of electric shock. Connecting a generator to family homes could cause a surge in electricity that might result in injury or death. The HSENI have advised only connecting generators to appliances with heavy-duty extension cords. And finally, generators increase the risk of fire, so they should always be fueled outside, and users of generators should ensure there are no flammable materials close to the place where they are using it.
Thanks, Maitiú. Well, at the top of the show, we mentioned the new Minister for Agriculture, Martin Heydon, who has been in the job now for a full week. The Minister made time in that first week to chat to Agriland about his new role and his own background in farming. What did the Minister have to say, Louise?
The new Minister for Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and the Marine, Martin Heydon, said he is determined to deliver for the agricultural sector, whether this is in relation to Ireland's position on the EU-Mercosur trade deal, which he believes is wrong on a number of different levels in its current form, or on the schedule of farm inspections. Minister Heydon said he hopes to be in every nook and cranny of the country, meeting farmers from all different enterprises and all different sectors. Here is a snip about what he had to say to Agriland.
I think more than anything, farming is my DNA. It's who I am. It's what I was raised as. I was raised in a family where being a farmer was part of your identity. You identify yourself as a farmer. That is me. It is me and my wife and our 4 young kids on our farm at home in South Kildare, where I still have beef and tillage.
The Minister also spoke about delayed payments in relation to the Agri-Climate Rural Environmental Scheme, or ACRES. He said that ACRES is too complex, there are too many actions, there are too many different systems needed for a computer system to be administered. He believes farmers should be supported with much less bureaucracy and red tape, and he said that he feels that it is not compatible with increasingly complex schemes. He also called for a reformed Common Agricultural Policy, or CAP, to deliver simplification for farmers.
And despite only being in the job for a week, the Minister has already been in Brussels for his first meeting of agriculture ministers in the Council of the EU, where the EU-Mercosur trade agreement came up for discussion. What did the Minister have to say on that, Louise?
Yes, so just 4 days into the job, the Minister set off to Brussels for a roundtable discussion. Minister Heydon reaffirmed his position on the Mercosur trade deal and said he would be opposed to it in its current form. He highlighted that there are real concerns about the Mercosur trade deal from sectors in Ireland which are vulnerable, particularly beef. The Minister also highlighted to the Council that he supported proposals put forward by the Commissioner for Agriculture and Food, Christoph Hansen, to enhance farmers' position in the food supply chain and to further protect them against unfair trading practices. In a discussion on Common Agricultural Policy, or CAP simplification, Minister Heydon called for a council to concentrate on changes that will bring the biggest impact for farmers and administrations in reducing administrative burdens. Minister Heydon set out to council members that there is a need to simplify matters for administrations and most importantly for farmers. He said he supported the need for performance assessment in order to retain CAP funding, to verify and highlight the good work that is being done by farmers through meaningful and effective reports backed by data.
The latest figures have been published by the Department of Agriculture for 2024 for the total exchequer spend on bovine TB. Louise, how much was spent and what figures does the department have on the number of reactors last year?
So the total exchequer spending soared to over €100 million in 2024 at a total of €100.616 million. It represents a 35% jump in the corresponding figures to the end of 2023, when total expenditure on TB reached €74.2 million. The data shows that the level of TB has been rising since 2017 and that last year there was a continued increase in both the number of TB reactors and the number of herds restricted. Provision figures indicate that by December 29th last year, 6,142 herds were restricted on a 12-month rolling basis. According to the latest quarterly report from DAFM on national bovine tuberculosis statistics, one of the key factors for the increased spend on TB is a year-on-year increase in relation to on-farm market valuation scheme. The on-farm market valuation scheme is the main compensation measure available to herd owners whose herds come down with TB. Over the 12 months to December 2024, the scheme increased by 56% to €54.3 million, up from €34.7 million a year earlier. According to the department, the continued increase is due to strong market values and a rise in the number of reactors. The latest figures from the department also highlight that TB compensation levels up to December 31st, 2024 increased to €9.6 million, while vet fees also jumped to €14.6 million. According to the department, provisional figures suggest that 41,630 reactors were removed in the period from December 31st, 2023 to December 29th, 2024. This compared to 28,868 reactors removed in the period from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. The latest data indicates that the herd incidence rate was 6% by December 29, 2024, up from 4.89% by December 31st, 2023.
Moving on now to a story which Agriland's beef specialist Breffney O'Brien was working on. A livestock carrier vessel is planned to arrive in Waterford Port in April of this year, where it will be kitted out with calf milk feeders before collecting its first consignment of Irish calves for export to the Netherlands. Breffney's article on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app has all the details and specs on the MV Alondra. Louise, can you talk us through some of the details of this ship?
Agriland caught up with David Geary from Limetree Global Shipping, the firm that co-owns the MV Alondra, along with Danish man Bjorn Clausen, about the ship. The boat is approved to bring 5,000 calves on the first shipment, but has the capacity to bring more calves than this on subsequent journeys. The MV Alondra is a Danish registered livestock carrier vessel that has 6 decks and can operate at up to a gale force 8 on the Beaufort scale. The vessel also has sufficient fodder and fuel storage capacity for a 22-day voyage. The custom-built livestock carrier boat has facilities to transport calves in loose pens and allow for milk feeding during transit. The ship will arrive in Waterford in the first week of April, having completed a voyage from Uruguay to Turkey. Once the ship has docked at Waterford Port, calf feeding systems will then be installed. It is planned that the MV Alondra will be based at Waterford Port, and from then on all voyages will originate from Ireland. The calves being transported to the Netherlands will be unloaded at Flushing Port. The round trip is expected to take 7 days, with 1 day to load the calves, 2 days to sail over, 1 day to unload the calves, and 3 days to deep clean the vessel and return it to Ireland. Photos of the ship can be found over on Agriland.ie.
Finally this week, before we leave you, the hugely popular Traditional Farm Buildings Grant Scheme is now open for 2025. Louise, this scheme generates a lot of interest, so can you take us through the key details?
Yes, so the scheme encourages investment by farmers in the conservation of traditional farm buildings and structures of significant heritage value that contribute to our rural landscape in Ireland. These may include historic yard surfaces, buildings, gates and gate pillars that form as part of the working farm. Many of the supported structures also provide roosting sites for bats and nesting sites for birds. A budget of €1.5 million for the 2025 scheme has been set aside. Applications are now open and the scheme will close on Monday, March 10th, 2025. A grant award will cover up to 75% of the cost of the works, with a maximum available grant of €30,000. The scheme is funded under the transitional arrangements of the 2014 to 2020 Rural Development Programme, the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development in Europe.
Thanks for that, Louise. And if you want to learn more about the scheme, or indeed any of the stories on today's podcast, you can check them all out on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. But that's where we'll leave it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Louise, Maitiú and myself, enjoy the long weekend.